that person's fast will not be accepted because he has not made the intention of fasting. Intention is also a fard, part of fasting. Now, if a person, he initially did not intend to fast, and the morning had, he was spending time during the morning and he hadn't eaten anything so far, that person has up until midday, zawal, to make the intention for fasting. Okay? Once the midday point has passed, he hasn't eaten or drunk anything yet, then if he makes intention after the midday point, his fasting will not be accepted. The fasting intention must be made before the midday as long as he hasn't consumed any food or drink. Now, sometimes people may decide to keep another type of fast in Ramadan. As a rule of thumb, in the month of Ramadan, there's only one fasting accepted, and that is the fasting of that year's Ramadan. Okay, only that year's Ramadan. Some people may think that they can do the last year's Ramadan qada in this month's Ramadan. That fasting will not be accepted. Regardless of what intention he makes, only this year's Ramadan will be accepted. That day's Ramadan will only be accepted. In other cases, some people, they say, if for example I pass my exams, oh Allah, if you help me pass my exams, I will fast for X amount of days. I will fast for 10 days, 3 days, a whole month, whatever it may be. If he decides to do those fasts in the month of Ramadan, like I mentioned before, as a rule of thumb, only this day's and that year's Ramadan will be accepted regardless of the intention that person makes during that day. Also, that also includes kafara fast. When a person intentionally breaks his fast, he must make up the qada and also do kafara, which is 60 days continuous. If that person starts his kafara 40 days before Ramadan and 20 days goes into Ramadan, those 20 days that he done in the month of Ramadan, they will not be counted as kafara. They will only count it as this year's Ramadan, and his kafara will be incomplete. We'll have to do kafara again, start it again at a time when it is appropriate. A person that falls unconscious, that person, if he falls unconscious, and as long as no one was giving him any medicine during his unconscious state, his fast will be completed. That day's fast, if it was during the fasting period, that day's fast will be completed as long as he wasn't administered any sort of medication or food during that time. If that person's unconsciousness continues for days, every day after that, that fasting will not be counted, because, like I mentioned before, each day's fast, you must make an intention. Because he has not made intention for those subsequent days whilst he was unconscious, those fastings will not be accepted even though he's unconscious. Only the day that he felt unconscious whilst he was fasting, only that day's fast will be accepted. The remaining days where he was unconscious, he must perform qada fasts. Now, those things which do not actually break your fast, eating by accident and you forgot that you're fasting. It was in the back of your mind, you started eating and you suddenly remember that you are fasting. Okay? What you do is you stop eating straight away. If you got any food in your mouth, spit it out, rinse your mouth if needed. Your fasting does not break. There are some times when people think that because my fasting has broken now, because I ate by mistake, my fast is broken, they continue to eat. This person fast will break because he has eaten with the intention, even though he thinks that his fasting is broken, when in fact it hasn't. but the fact he ate afterwards, thinking his fast is broken, he thinks that he is not a fasting person, this eating or drinking will break his fast. But making a mistake does not break your fast. Now, what should you do if you see someone eating or drinking and you know they are fasting? Okay, what should you do? If you know this person, then you know his character, what he's like. If you know that this person is a strong individual and fasting for him is not too much of a physical strain upon this person, then you gently and kindly remind this person, oh brother, you or sister, you are fasting, stop eating. Kindly and gently. Just like you would want someone to tell you in a gentle manner, to tell you to stop eating. But if that person is a person who struggles during the fasting period, he struggles to fast, each day is a struggle for him, then you leave him be and you let him remember himself, or let Allah remind him that he is fasting himself. You do not disturb that person and do not think bad about this person. Do not think evil about this person. Okay? We do not know that person's situation. Even if you see a person who is medically given reason not to fast, and we see a person that's not eating, do not think evil of this person. Okay? Do not think bad about this person, because we do not know every single person's situation. We do not know if they have a condition or some sort of issue which makes it difficult for them to fast, and they have been excused by a medical professional who is experienced and is a Muslim. Do not think bad of others. This is something that we should also practice in the month of Ramadan. Abstain from thinking bad of other people. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna ba'da dhanni ithm, that some thoughts can be evil. Some thoughts can lead to sin. Thinking bad about your brother and sister is also a disservice to them and also a sin. A person who sleeps throughout the whole day, okay, his fast will also be counted as long as he made intention prior or at the beginning of that fast. Okay. What if a person was going about his business and a fly entered his throat and he swallowed it by accident? Or for example, he was walking through somewhere and smoke entered his nostrils and he inhaled it unintentionally. Such a person's fast will not break because he did this unintentionally. But what about that person who goes to a fragrance store, or he sits in a house or in a place where there is incense sticks lighted up, and he sits next to it, and if he inhales it in that scenario, in that situation, then that person's fast will break. He must perform qada afterwards, not kafara. Because that person has put himself in that situation where he is exposed to such things where he will increase the chance of him inhaling smoke and inhaling these scents into his nostrils. In that scenario, because he's put himself in that situation, his fast will break. What if a person had a bit of food left in between his teeth? Okay. Now, if this morsel or this fragments of food is smaller than the size of a pea, okay, it became dislodged during the day and he swallowed it because of the size, because it's smaller than a gram seed, then his fast will not break. But if that person took it out, regardless of the size, if he puts it back into his mouth and then swallows it, that fast will break. And then anything above a gram seed, anything bigger than a seed, will be a cause of you breaking your fast. Swallowing saliva does not break fast, although it is refrained upon. It also is makruh. You should not do so. Gather spit and then swallow. You should not be doing so. Sniffling the nose, or sniffling or snorting the nose, and the mucus which comes down, this does not break the fast. If, for example, a person bathing upon him became fard through for whatever reason, during the night he had to perform ghusl, but he did not do a ghusl until the fasting time had started, this does not break the fast. Even if you were sleeping during the day and for some reason you had to perform a fard ghusl, this does not break your fast, because this was obviously during the sleep. Whilst you are rinsing the mouth, for example, you are performing ghusl or you are performing wudu, and water went down your throat because you were gargling, okay? This will break your fast. This is why gargling during the month of Ramadan, you should be very, very careful. Do not gargle whilst you are fasting, okay? Because when you are pushing the air to gargle in your mouth, that can cause water to enter your throat. That's why in fasting, we'll put water into your mouth, you swirl it around and spit it out. Do not gargle whilst you are fasting. You are exposing yourself to a chance of breaking the fast. And if water does enter your throat, then qada will be fard upon that person, but not kafara. Similarly, when a person enters water into his nostril, do not snort it into your nose, because then it will enter your throat and then into your stomach. This will also break your fast. Only place the water into your nostril, clean your nostril. Do not snort it inwards. Now, if a person swallows vomit, okay, so this vomit came up, enters his mouth, and he swallows it back down again, this will break his fast, okay? But if it just came up to the throat and went back down again, never entered his mouth, this will not break the fast. As long as it does not enter the mouth and you swallow it back in, it does not break your fast. Blood that is mixed in with your saliva. Now, if the blood is more than the saliva, then swallowing this saliva and blood will break the fast. However, if the blood is less than the saliva, this will not break the fast. A common misconception is a person, when they vomit, they think that their fast is broken, when in actual fact, fasting is not broken because of vomiting. Vomiting does not break the fast, okay? But if that person, like I mentioned before, he thinks his fast is broken, starts to eat, then his fast will break and will have to perform qada. Now, what are some of the disliked acts? Tasting food, although not eating it or consuming it, this is makruh. This is disliked, okay? A mother chewing down or breaking down food to give to the child, okay, when she has other alternatives, when you can use a blender or you can use other thing to break down the food so it's easy for the baby to eat, then this is makruh. If there are no alternatives, none whatsoever, to feed the child, then it is okay for a mother to break down the food in her own mouth and to feed the child. But this is only in a scenario where there are no alternatives. Brushing your teeth with anything with, for example, toothpaste or anything with flavor, okay? You can brush your teeth, but you can't use any toothpaste or anything that has flavor on it. Using a miswak is obviously the best way to brush your teeth, because obviously it's a sunnah. If you want to brush your teeth with a toothbrush, you can do so, but as long as you do not use any sort of toothpaste or any sort of flavoring. Now, if a person, some rules regarding suhoor and iftar, if a person wakes up and he assumes that it is still the time of suhoor and he eats and drinks, but in actual fact, in reality, the time for fajr has started, that person's fast will not be valid. That person's fast will not be valid because he started to eat during the time of fasting and he has assumed that he is not in a fasting state yet. Now, a person that breaks a fast unintentionally, then, or for some medical reason, they have to break their fast, or for example, a person was unconscious, he could not fast, or for example, a person had a valid reason like he was a traveler, they are excused from fasting, they must perform their qada as soon as possible. They must perform their qada as soon as possible. They should not delay it. They should do it as soon as possible. Okay? And women folk who also wish to perform their qada in the month of Shawwal, but also want to partake in the 6th fast of Shawwal, some scholars have actually said that their qada and their Shawwal fast, they can be combined and they can also partake in the Shawwal fast and at the same time also fulfill their qada fast at the same time. Some scholars have also said that there is leeway in this area for women because they need to perform their qada and also they want to partake in their Shawwal fast. Now moving on to kafara. A person who intentionally broke their fast for whatever reason, first and foremost, they must complete their qada. Okay, so however many fasts they broke, they fulfill and redo those qada, those fasts again. Thereafter, they perform kafara. Now kafara is fasting for 60 consecutive days without any delay or break in between. Okay, do not break in between. So for example, you can't do 20 and break one day and do another 20 then break. As soon as you take a break, the whole 60 starts again. Okay, so for example, if a person starts fasting in the month of Shawwal, late into Shawwal, and then he fasts every single day consecutively, and then in between Eid al-Adha appears. Now as we know, Eid al-Adha and the days after Eid, the 3 days after Eid, they are known as Ayyam al-Tashriq. It is forbidden to fast during these days. Now you can't fast during these days, but this person has done his kafara 40, 50 days, 59 days, whatever it may be, and Eid has come in between, his kafara will be broken, he will start all over again after Eid al-Adha. This is why it's important that you plan beforehand when you will do your qada and when you will perform your kafara. Now kafara, regardless of however many fasts you broke intentionally in 1 year, in one Ramadan, there's only one kafara. So for example, in 2025 or the year 1446 Hijri, I broke 10 fasts intentionally. So I do 10 qada, but I only do 60 kafara, 160. You don't have to do 60 times by 10, 600 days of fasting. You don't have to do that. For one Ramadan, for 1 year's Ramadan, there's only one kafara of 60 days. Every subsequent Ramadan, for example, last year Ramadan, I broke a few fasts intentionally. The year before that, I broke a few fasts intentionally. That's 3 separate years Ramadan. That means 60 times by 320 fasts I must keep of kafara. Only 1 year's Ramadan, regardless of how many fasts you break, there's only one kafara. A person does not have the ability, the strength to fast. What can they do as an alternative? Now what they do is they can feed 60 people a good meal, a decent meal, nothing too fancy, nothing which you won't feed yourself even, an average good meal, a healthy meal. You feed 60 people a full meal twice a day. Okay, 60 people, 2 meals for that day. Or alternatively, you feed one person 2 meals a day for 60 days continuous. Okay, these are alternatives. This is if you cannot fast physically. And the people you are feeding, they must be all adult. Must be all adult males and females. If any children are amongst these 60 people, the kafara will not be counted. And it's not necessary that you actually feed the people. Alhamdulillah, we have many services nowadays where you can actually pay many charities for this service. You just approach them and say how much is it for a kafara or a fitra, whatever it may be, and you give them the money, and then they will handle the logistics and the distribution of the food for the poor people. If a person asks another person on their behalf to fulfill their kafara, okay, for example, as a dying wish that he said, I've got kafara, then those people from his family should fulfill his kafara on his behalf. And they should also follow the same rules which is mentioned before, feeding 60 people 2 meals a day, or one person 2 meals for 60 days. In which conditions is a person allowed to break their fast? In which scenarios are they allowed to break their fast? So, such illness which will cause even more problems if he continues to fast. In that scenario, he can break his fast, and thereafter he can perform qada. But when I say these things, it's only qada. He does not have to perform kafara because he has a valid reason to break his fast. As long as he has a valid reason to break his fast, there is only qada upon this person, no kafara. A woman who is pregnant and during the pregnancy she is fasting and it becomes very, very difficult upon her and she fears for the health of her child, the child that she is bearing, then it is permissible for this woman to break her fast. A person who is recovering, in the stages of recovery from a sickness or from an illness. Now, if he starts to fast, if this fasting causes his health to be delayed, then he should also refrain from fasting. Okay? He should wait till he has fully recovered and able to fast, and wait till that period, then he should fast. He should not fast early and prolong his illness or his sickness. A person who goes on a journey, okay? A person who goes on a journey and he reaches the distance of a musafir, 77 kilometers or 48 miles or more, then he can break his fast, okay? They will only have to perform qada thereafter. A person who is sick and very, very ill, he's not fasting, or a person who is a traveler, and during the travel or during this sickness, this person passes away. Before this, obviously, like I mentioned before, they do qada. But because they passed away during this sickness or illness, or they passed away on the journey, they were unable to perform the qada, this person is absolved and is forgiven from performing any sort of qada. The inheritors or his family do not have to pay any fitra or fidya on his behalf because he passed away in that sickness or during that travel. People who are very, very ill, or people who are very, very old and they have no hope of ever gaining the ability to fast, then for these people, instead of fasting, they must pay fidya. Now, fidya or fitrana, as it may be known to other people, is a charity contribution where you pay towards charity and other poor people are given this in terms of food or grain. Now, a person who cannot fast and he has no hope of gaining the ability to fast, either because of sickness or because of extremely old age, then they pay fidya for each and every single fast. And this will be a substitute for that person who is unable to fast. If, for example, however, this person who had no hope suddenly regains the strength and the ability to fast, then he must start fasting again as soon as possible. And all the fidya that that person gave, that will become a voluntary and nafil contribution towards charity on his behalf, and he should try and perform the qada as soon as possible. Okay? All those fidya that he gave, they will be counted as nafil contribution to charity, and all the fasts that he missed, he must perform qada for those fasts. Now a person, he is unable to fulfill his qada in his lifetime, or he is unable, he has not yet had the opportunity to pay the fidya during his lifetime. Now part of his will and part of his bequest, he asks his inheritors and his relatives to pay the fidya on his behalf. Now, what must be done is that if the fidya is less or equivalent to a third of his wealth, that inheritors must pay that fidya before they distribute the inheritance, as long as it's equivalent to a third or less. If it is more than a third, then there is no obligation upon the inheritors to pay the total amount of fidya. They pay whatever is within the third, they give that within the fidya. The rest is their entitlement and their right to take that wealth. There is not further upon them to give more than a third. They can distribute the rest of that wealth. Now, the inheritors, if they want to, according to their goodwill, they can pay the remaining fidya if they want. Even if one person says no, then they must receive their right. They must receive their total inheritance according to how much they are supposed to receive. Thereafter, you look upon yourself. If you want to give it, if the individuals want to fulfill this fidya, then they can do so on behalf of the person who is deceased. If there are any immature children, young boys or girls, who are amongst the inheritors, then you cannot make that decision for them. You must give them their inheritance in full, and you do not take anything from it, because you do not have any right over that wealth. That is their right and their inheritance. And last thing, in the last 10 days of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ, he made it a tradition and a great sunnah that he used to perform i'tikaf. Now, from the 21st of Ramadan, in the Asr Salah, people should make their way to the masjid, and as soon as Maghrib Salah starts, the i'tikaf will start. And i'tikaf means you do not leave the masjid, the confines of the masjid, for any reason, apart from obviously using the toilet and performing wudu. Okay? Even if there's people to provide water to you to perform wudu or wash your hands or rinse your mouth in the masjid, even if you have that facility, then even that person cannot leave the masjid. But performing i'tikaf is a great sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said, that person who observes i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan, he will obtain the reward of 2 accepted Hajj and Umrah. Okay? Whoever for the sake of Allah performs even 1 day's i'tikaf, Allah will keep the fire of Jahannam and the trenches of Jahannam away from this person. The reason being is because i'tikaf is a sunnah which is a responsibility of the whole community. If one person fulfills the i'tikaf, then the whole community's i'tikaf responsibility has been fulfilled. And he shall receive the reward of the community and of all the people in that community. But if no one in that community performs i'tikaf, then that whole community will be held responsible for no one performing i'tikaf in the masjid that year. So those who fulfill the responsibility of i'tikaf, they are taking responsibility of the whole community, and they will receive the reward for the whole community. This is why such big blessing and such rewards for performing i'tikaf. The whole reason for i'tikaf is that we may find the night of power, Laylatul Qadr, and make the most out of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to perform i'tikaf at least once in our lifetime, and thereon afterwards perform many i'tikaf in our lives as possible. And may He give us the ability and understanding of what i'tikaf and what the month of Ramadan is, and may He give us the ability to take full advantage of the month of Ramadan. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Just an important announcement. Tomorrow we have the fiqh of zakat, inshallah, which will be delivered by Imam Abu Bakr from National Zakat Foundation. It will be very beneficial for everyone, okay, because many of us give our zakat in Ramadan. It's good to know if we're giving the right amount, okay, or if previously we haven't given the right amount so we can make up for it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to act upon everything Mufti Sahib said. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to make the most of Ramadan. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم لك الحمد كله ولك الشكر كله وإليك يرجع الأمر كله اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم اللهم تقبل منا صيامنا وقيامنا وقعودنا وسجودنا وتلاوتنا اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.